Sometime in the late summer, early fall, I perform what I call my research activity. This research activity is nothing elaborate. It's simply reaching out to people like you, solo consultants, and consultants that are working at small boutique consulting businesses. Maybe it's even the business owner of the consulting business, to ask for some feedback. I'm researching to find out what has been working for you as you build and grow your business, what hasn't been working, and what are some of your top challenges. Every time I perform this research activity and ask for feedback, the top three vary, but there is one topic that tends to be on the list of the top three. And that topic, how to get clients, how to create relationships with clients that fit your ideal client criteria. There are three key strategies or three key approaches that you, a consultant, wants to hone. You want to hone these three strategies so that you connect, get known, and build a relationship with your ideal client. Build relationships with people who want to work with you and with whom you want to work. The three strategies: strategic targeted outreach, strategic networking, and strategic referrals. Note the key word there, strategic. You want to be very strategic as to how you approach each of these approaches. The three approaches or three strategies help you connect, get known, and nurture a relationship. Connect, get known, and nurture are the first three stages of the consulting relationship model. If you're not sure what I mean by consulting relationship model, there's a video on this channel that discusses the 5 stages of a relationship. I will put a link in the description area below. To explain the 3 strategies, the 3 approaches, I will be flipping to part of a presentation I gave. The presentation discusses each of the approaches, but it explains each of them with the help of a true life consulting story. The true life consulting story, I'll be honest, is really a culmination of 3 different consultants because I wanted to make sure I hit all the key points in a short video, short presentation, and leave you with action items that you can implement immediately. After the video, I will be back, and I look forward to seeing you then. You don't need to have a fancy website, a logo, all the brochures in the world, but you do need to know how to connect. You need to be able to connect, get known, nurture, and then be in a position to ask and offer. I'm going to explain this a little bit more with the help of some stories. And the stories are based on real life situations. But let me ask you a question. How do you connect with people? As a consultant, how do you get out there and connect? Do you speak, write, podcasts, videos, webinars, social media? I mentioned a few of those early on when I mentioned some of the comments I received from people who are struggling to get clients. Ads are at the bottom of my list. Network, referrals, targeted outreach. These are all great ways to connect, but there's 3 that are the best ways, and they are key to building a successful consulting business. The first few things, the speaking, the writing, the podcast, the videos, the webinars, social media, ads, I call them passive activities because people tend to have to find you. You're not taking the initiative to build a relationship with them. They have to find you. If you speak, people have to find you. I'm doing a webinar right now, and I did send out and invite people that were connected with me on LinkedIn and let people who are on my mailing list know I was speaking. But for the most part, on LinkedIn, if people found this webinar, they found it by accident. You can write, and yes, I write, and people can find you by your writing, the podcast, the videos, but they're passive. You're waiting for people to find you so that you can move them forward. The best ways to connect with people, the best strategies that every consultant needs to hone are networking, referrals, and targeted outreach. And I want to kick it up a notch. And when I say I want to kick it up a notch, I want to kick it up a notch by saying you have to be strategic. Keyword, strategic. I want you to think about strategically networking, strategic referrals, strategic targeted outreach. I'm going to take a second here, and I want you to think about what actions are you currently taking today to connect, get known, and nurture so that you get to the point where there's an ask and an offer, a point where you are in a position to provide a proposal. How are you going about building relationships with people that you want to work with and who want to work with you? Just take a second to jot it down and think about how much time are you spending on strategically networking, and I'll explain more what I mean by that, referrals, as well as targeted outreach. And targeted outreach is not necessarily cold calling. I actually don't recommend true cold calling, and we'll talk more about that in a second. I mentioned I will be explaining the 3 key strategies with the help of some real life examples. And I'm basically going to stick with one real life example and then interject a few things as we talk. The example I'm going to use is a small business consultant. This small business consultant that I'm using in the example is based on one key client of mine, and then 2 other clients who also are small business consultants to help fill in some holes. The small business consultant did one thing great. She focused on what I call her business core. She started there. And your business core is your focus, ideal client, and point of view. Just like your body has a business core, so does your business. And this is where she started. Her focus was operational efficiency. Her ideal client were CEOs or owners of trade businesses, HVAC and plumbing. She spent the time to identify where she might be able to find her ideal client. And she picked 2 spots, trade associations and complementary businesses. She identified her own point of view. A point of view helps differentiate you. It helps you stand out in a crowded field of other consultants. It is how you move somebody from where they are today to where they want to be. It's the journey you take them on. And what she did was she leveraged trade industry practices and created her own operational efficiency methodology. And as she did this, she validated that small business owners were really interested in what she wanted to offer. She had a great base, a great start. She had her own professional presence, message, testimonials, third-party documents with her notes. She didn't write anything. She took things that were already out there and put her notes next to it. But she was still stuck. Her comment to me was, how do I get from where I am to building the relationships with the right people? We talked about it. She had already started to do that as she validated people were interested in what she had to offer. But she didn't realize that she had started the relationship building process during that evaluation process. What she realized too, and all three of the people that are actually part of this one scenario here, none of them wanted to write, none of them wanted to speak. They weren't interested in really focusing on LinkedIn, a little bit with Facebook, because they realized their ideal client wasn't there. They knew they had to connect, get known, and nurture the relationship so they could get to the point of the ask and offer. All three of them decided to focus on strategic targeted outreach, networking, and referrals. Now, these three concepts, these three strategies can overlap. And for many people, they do overlap. But for me to help explain the three strategies, I'll be walking through them in a linear fashion, starting with targeted outreach. For targeted outreach, this consultant sat down and said, who do I know? Who do I know? And who do I want to know? She started by looking at her contacts. And she started also by looking at who she spoke to when she validated that small business owners might be interested in what she had to offer. She compared to her ideal client criteria, which are both your behaviors and your mannerisms and your characteristics. It's the combination of characteristics such as industry, as well as, hey, do they pay on time? And she sorted the people into three categories. Got to sort them somehow, just like in the Harry Potter movies, they throw people in the hat and they sort them out. Three categories, A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3. The A category were the people that she felt she had the best opportunity of reaching out to and starting to build relationships because they might be interested in what she had to offer. And she believed they were a good fit for what she was doing and they might have a need. What ended up happening is she identified 15 potential clients, people she wanted to build relationships with. And part of her criteria was, do I want to work with them? Is this a person that I'm going to be able to help? And I'm going to enjoy working with them. And she sat back and said, I have a lot of things that I can use to help me reach out. I have my testimonies. I have my stories. I have 2 HVAC and Plumbing Trade Association studies, and I have my point of view. Now, here's the thing. She had to do research on each of these people. This isn't just going through putting down a name on a piece of paper or in a spreadsheet. This is actually sitting down and doing some research. So that's what she did. She had to figure out the best way to connect. And this is the approach she took. She started by connecting. And when she started to connect, she started by writing a personalized email. In some cases, she wrote an old-fashioned letter. A personalized email that started with a conversation about them, not her, not what she was trying to do. All she was trying to do is start building a relationship with the person. This doesn't mean going out and playing golf. This means building a relationship that's a business type relationship. And in this email, she offered something of value. She decided to use her high value briefing, one with her comments and her notes. And when the person came back and said yes, she sent an agenda. She started the connection process. Now, does everybody say yes the first time around? No. But I'll be honest, you'd be surprised at how many people will take the time to read a personalized message. And if you can offer something of value, they'll be willing to talk to you. At least you're getting to first base and maybe getting to second base. Once she had a meeting with the person, she shared the high value briefing. She shared insights, but she didn't do most of the talking. The other person did. She asked questions and she positioned herself for follow-up. That led to the development of a plan specific for that person. And she nurtured that relationship. Sometimes the relationship ended after the connect, other times after the get to know, other times it nurtured for a while, but other times it led to an ask and offer where somebody said, "Can you help me?" Or she turned around and said, "Would you be interested in hearing more about how I can help you?" Here's a give for anybody listening today, or anybody. Help yourself to the YouTube video on how to create an effective personalized message if you don't know how to do it. It's out there. At the very end, I'll put a link to the YouTube video in the chat. That is all there is to targeted outreach. Now, I'll come back to this a little later to show you how you can integrate the 3 strategies as you move forward. Here's the important thing. As she was reaching out, she made it a point to constantly provide value and constantly taking the time to think about how she could help them. She was responsive. She was proactive. She showed she would be easy to work with. She worked on building a win-win relationship. A very powerful way to build a relationship with somebody that you want to build a relationship with. The other 2 strategies, strategic networking and strategic referrals, also rely on you providing value, showing how you can help, being proactive, showing you're easy to work with, and constantly developing win-win relationships. Let me spend a few minutes talking about the next strategy. The next strategy is strategic networking. I mentioned this small business consultant spent time as she worked on a business core determining where she could find her ideal client. Strategic networking really requires you to spend time thinking where you can find your ideal client and where your ideal client can find you. It's a fabulous feeling when somebody walks up to you and says, "You know what? I believe you can help me. Do you mind? Do you have time? Can we talk?" It's a great feeling. And you want to position yourself so that you're there so that somebody can come up to you and say just that. You don't need many places where you strategic network. You just need to be cognitive of where you're doing it and being mindful that you want to provide value as you do it. There are basically 10 channels or categories where you might be able to find your ideal client. I use the word find your ideal client, where your ideal client hangs out. Some of them are associations, organizations, online blogs, business journals, complementary businesses. And yes, you can find them on social media. There is a downloadable document that I also will put the link in the chat that you help yourself to. The 10 channels are there. You are not going to use all the 10 channels. You will use 1, 2, maybe 3. But download the document. There's a short exercise in there. If you're stuck, it might provide you some ideas. This small business consultant took the approach and said, "You know what? I'm going to do that research. I'm going to find a few places. I'm going to compare the people to my ideal client criteria. And she spent some time and she visited some organizations and some associations and actually came back and said to me, you know what? I'm not finding my ideal client there. Oh, I'm finding people that might be, but I'm not so sure that's the right place for me to network. And I said, fine, move on. You need to spend time finding the right places and be strategic about it. What ended up happening is she came up with two places where she decided to strategically network. One was a trade association, and the other was an association with complementary businesses that supported what she was doing and how she was helping HVAC and plumbing companies. One was a supplier. Another one was somebody who came in and renovated so that they could properly deal with new bathrooms, plumbing issues that they were dealing with. That's where she started to spend her time. But how did she think about and go about connecting? I'm only going to talk about the trade association using the same concepts. She needed to determine the best way to connect with the association. She started by sending a personalized email to the executive director. Her goal, just to get to know the organization. That's all she wanted. And since it was an association, guess what? The executive director was more than willing to talk to her. She set an agenda as to what she wanted to discuss. And she asked the executive director about what the executive director wanted to discuss. They did meet. They shared insights. They both talked. She listened a lot and asked questions. They positioned themselves for a follow-up meeting. And she offered to provide a high-value briefing to the members, kind of a webinar, just to get her name out there and to get known a little bit more. She did not agree to be on any committees. Her comment was she just wanted to start to get to know people before she became active, and that's great. And she developed a plan that was specific for the association. But what the executive director came back with, and this was part of the positioning for the follow-up meeting, she said, let me introduce you to a few people who I believe might be able to use your services. And she was provided with very targeted referrals. This consultant then used that introduction as a starting point and wrote a personalized message to the people. Getting to know them and moving them through the stages of a relationship, the connect, get to know, and nurture. Let me provide you, I'm talking about the small business consultant, but let me provide you an example of another person. He spent 3 years, maybe 4 years with an association. He identified 2 associations, and that's the only places he networks. And after a while, he did join a committee at one of them, and he writes an article every quarter. But he gets all his clients from those 2 associations. He follows a very specific approach, and he does targeted outreach and relies on referrals from those 2 associations. The only reason he writes is because he's getting active with the association. And it's a good way for him also to get known with writing. The last of the 3 strategies, referrals. Strategic referrals, not just referrals. When I started this presentation, I talked to that one person said and it was a he, was getting his contacts by asking for referrals. And referrals are a fabulous way to help you start building relationships and get known, because a referral from a very well established, well-known person gives you a notch up when you're introduced, because they're putting their brand behind you. But there really are two types of referrals. The first are generic referrals. This is what the gentleman was doing when he was asking him for referrals. He was just asking. And there are three types of referrals: cold, warm, and hot referrals. Cold, you throw it over the fence. Here's a referral. Here's a name. Go reach that. Warm is somebody might do an introduction via an email. Hot, I like hot referrals. And my policy is I really try to give hot referrals. Hot referrals are simply this: I don't refer anybody unless I make sure it is a good fit for both people. And I touch base with both people before I do that introduction. Hot referrals. When I give a hot referral, 9 times out of 10, the relationship moves forward and one person becomes the client of the other, or they become some solid strategic partner helping one another. One of the things I tell, and I'll be honest, tell people to do is, if you're asking for a referral, write it for the other person. So if I ask Joe for a referral because I believe it's a good person for me to connect with, I write that referral introduction for Joe so that Joe doesn't have to do it. And I make sure the right information's in it as to why I want to connect and why there's value for the two of us to connect. Mm-hmm. That's the generic, but I want you to focus on strategic referrals. Strategic referrals are where you identify 3 to 5 people and you strategically work together to help one another with referrals. I mentioned the small business consultant had identified one association and one organization with complementary businesses. That small business consultant, as she got to know people in that complementary business organization, she identified 2 people who have become strategic referral partners. They meet on a regular basis, and here's what she did. To connect, she sent a personalized message to discuss a partnership, and I'm using partnership, but it's really a referral partnership. And before she did that, she drafted a policy as to how the 2 of them could work together. You know, it's draft, because this has to be a win-win for both people. And she sent, when the person said yes, she sent an agenda, and they met. They met to discuss the referral partnership. They shared insights, they asked questions, and they positioned themselves for follow-up meetings. And she developed a plan specific for them to meet on a quarterly basis. How did this work out for her? Really well. The first 2 people she asked, they both agreed. And they've been going strong ever since, meeting on a quarterly basis. Did it start slow? Yeah, because they had to figure out how to work together. But it's been a very solid relationship with the first 2 people she reached out to. She only has 3. That's it. 3 is a good number. Don't go overboard. But 3, a good way to help build relationships and move forward. So when she gets an introduction, and is truly an introduction from one of these strategic partners, the groundwork has already been laid. And she goes back and starts over again. She connects with the person that was referred to her. She connects, gets to know the person, nurtures the relationship until she provides a proposal. And I'll be honest, the connection she gets or the introduction she gets from her referral partners usually move along quite fast. But here's one thing people forget to do. I can talk about strategies all forever, and I can provide you lots of different examples, but you need to be disciplined. You need to create the strategy, an overall strategy, what works for you, which of the three work for you. I recommend all three to some degree. Some people use one more than the other, but create a plan and then work it daily. And it is, believe it or not, very easy to do something every day. If you have 15 people that you are, or 20 people that you're going to reach out in a targeted manner and continue to build a relationship, work on one a day. If you have 20, 4 weeks in a month, one a day, you've touched each one once during the month. Welcome back. I hope you're walking away with a better understanding of three key strategies, three key approaches that you might want to implement in your own consulting business. The three approaches, the three strategies: strategic targeted outreach, strategic networking, and strategic referrals. Each can be used individually or in conjunction with one another. How much you use each one will vary based on you and your preferences, your ideal client, and your consulting business, what services you provide. I mentioned a video that discusses the 5 stages of a relationship model, as well as a personalized message video. Links for both are down below. I also mentioned a few downloadable documents, one being how to find your ideal client. A link to that document is down below as well. If you're wondering how much you know or don't know about consulting, consider downloading the consulting assessment document. It's a series of yes and no questions. It takes about 10 minutes to answer, but it might give you an idea of where you might need some assistance. As always, if you have any questions, put them in the comment, drop me an email. My contact information with regard to a calendar is down below in the description area. Please reach out if you have any questions or anything I can help you with. Until the next Consulting Insight video, take care. I look forward to seeing you again.